If you grew up in America, when the milkman, breadman, and neighborhood delivery truck were still part of everyday life, this old Dodge probably wouldn't have looked unusual. But crawl underneath it, and something is missing. A rear-wheel drive truck built in 1948 should have a big solid axle and differential sitting between the rear wheels. This one didn't. Dodge moved one of the most important parts of the drivetrain somewhere nobody expected, then connected the wheels with a system so unusual Chrysler had to teach mechanics how to service it. And they didn't do it for speed, horsepower, or handling. They did it to solve one problem delivery drivers faced hundreds of times every working day. A problem so ordinary, so easy to overlook, that almost nobody else in Detroit thought it was worth solving. This is Motor Memento, where America's automotive past comes back to life. Subscribe, and let's see what Dodge was trying to solve. Dodge pulled the differential out of the conventional rear axle and bolted it straight to the truck's frame, fixed in place, no longer moving with the wheels. Power still ran back through a drive shaft like normal, but from there, it split outward through separate, jointed half shafts that could flex and telescope as the suspension moved. That fixed differential let Dodge do something no ordinary truck of the period could. It let them drop the cargo floor down dramatically low, and for a driver climbing in and out of that truck hundreds of times a day, every inch of lowered height mattered. Every other manufacturer accepted the high floor as the cost of doing business. Dodge decided the trade-off itself was the problem worth solving, and that decision changed everything underneath the truck. This truck wasn't built for the highway. It was built for the street. Milk before sunrise, bread to the corner grocery, newspapers, parcels, supplies, moved door to door by a driver who stopped, climbed down, walked to the cargo box, grabbed a case, delivered it, climbed back in, and did it again. Dozens of times before lunch, hundreds across a week. Picture the routine in detail. You're behind the wheel, moving through neighborhoods. Stop at a customer, step down from the cab, walk to the cargo area, lift goods, walk to the delivery point, return, repeat. This was the rhythm of post-war American commerce. Milk, bread, parcels, newspapers, department store goods, and supplies flowing directly to homes and businesses through the hands of delivery drivers. A driver performing this work might make 30, 40, sometimes 50 stops daily, each one requiring the same climb down, delivery, climb back up cycle. On a long-haul rig, a few extra inches of floor height mean nothing. You make the journey once, maybe twice a week. On a route like this, climbing that extra height, stop after stop, hundreds of times weekly, those inches multiply into real fatigue, accumulating across the body, day after day. That was the problem, sitting on Dodge's desk before anyone touched a differential. It was simply the truth of the job, the kind of daily grind drivers accepted without complaint, because nobody had built anything different. The part mechanics still call the pumpkin needs room underneath the truck, and room underneath means height above. The cargo floor has to clear both the housing and the suspension's full range of motion. Dodge could have accepted that high floor the way everyone else did. Instead, its engineers moved the one part everyone assumed had to live down there and rebuilt the whole rear end around getting it out of the way. It meant more parts, more engineering, and more explaining to mechanics. Every additional part represented cost to manufacture. Every different procedure meant more training for technicians. Dodge decided that cost was worth paying to solve the driver's problem. The company made a deliberate choice to prioritize driver ergonomics over mechanical simplicity. The route van ran power from engine to transmission to drive shaft into a fixed differential mounted on the frame, then out through jointed half shafts to each rear wheel independently. Compare that with a normal truck, which runs engine, transmission, drive shaft, into a differential riding inside a live axle, then axle shafts to the wheels. Same destination, completely different mechanical route. One clarification worth making, because it matters. Dodge didn't eliminate everything that could be called an axle. The truck still had rear hubs, shafts carrying torque, bearings, and suspension components controlling the wheels. What disappeared was the conventional solid rear-end assembly, the one almost every mechanic in 1948 expected to find the moment they looked underneath. There was also a quieter benefit to fixing that differential to the frame. That housing is heavy, and on a normal truck, its full weight moves up and down with every bump the wheels hit. Mount it to the frame instead, and that mass stops bouncing with the road. The wheels themselves stay lighter and easier to control. The suspension responds more consistently because unsprung weight decreased, making the truck easier to maneuver during all those frequent stop-and-go delivery stops. Dodge later promoted a striking idea. Reducing how much a driver had to climb over a normal working day could save the equivalent effort of climbing roughly 14 stories of a building. That number wasn't a laboratory measurement, it was a marketing claim. But its real value isn't whether every driver saved exactly 14 stories to the step. It's what the claim reveals. Dodge believed driver fatigue mattered enough, on a scale worth measuring in stories climbed, to redesign an entire drivetrain around it. That's not a small marketing footnote. That's a company putting a number on human effort and building a product around shrinking it. The route van was a real production vehicle, sold and put to work, delivering goods across American cities, not an experimental project that barely escaped the engineering department. Dodge produced dedicated operating and parts literature for it, and Chrysler went further, producing specific technical training explaining how to service this unusual rear suspension and drivetrain. The existence of that training tells you exactly how different this system was from the Dodge trucks a technician already knew. A company doesn't build a training program for a one-off experiment. It builds one for a truck it expects mechanics to see again and again, in shop after shop, city after city. The rear drivetrain wasn't the only place Dodge got aggressive about packaging. Surviving route vans show a truck engineered around usable cargo space wherever the design allowed, including how mechanical components like its flathead inline 6 were carefully positioned to stay out of the way. Every design choice served the same mission, maximizing room for the job the truck actually did. Some modern listings call the route van's rear end independent suspension. More mechanically informed descriptions compare it to Dion-style engineering, since the differential was fixed to the chassis while the wheels stayed linked. The safest description is this: an unconventional rear suspension and drive layout built around a frame-mounted differential and separate drive shafts. Dodge didn't invent that concept. They applied its logic to a very specific American problem, and understanding what the system did matters most. If this solved a real problem, why didn't the whole industry copy it? Not because it failed. A conventional live axle is simple, rugged, familiar, and cheap, and for most trucks, that was enough. The route van's specialized drivetrain added unique parts and service knowledge to solve a problem that mattered most in one specific kind of work: high frequency, stop and go, door-to-door delivery. For long-haul trucking, an ultra-low floor was never the priority. This wasn't a better system that failed to spread. It was a specialized system, built for a specialized job, doing exactly what it was designed to do. Nearly 8 decades later, the route van is easily dismissed as just another strange old delivery truck. Underneath it was a completely different philosophy. Instead of forcing the worker to adapt to traditional truck architecture, Dodge altered the architecture around the worker. This truck matters today not because it was fast, or beautiful, or powerful. It matters because Detroit solved a mundane, everyday problem with surprisingly radical engineering. Dodge didn't redesign the rear drivetrain to make the truck faster or more exciting. It did it because somewhere in America, a driver had to climb into that truck again, and again, and again, and somebody in Detroit simply decided that mattered enough to fix. If you enjoyed uncovering forgotten engineering like this, subscribe to Motor Memento, because America's automotive past is full of ideas far stranger than the cars we remember. And there's always another fascinating story waiting underneath the hood of something nobody thought twice about. Did you ever spot a route van on your own street? Tell us in the comments below. Subscribe to Motor Memento for more forgotten engineering stories from America's automotive past.